So let's start today with a simple question. What are the drawbacks of gaming on a wireless mouse? Now, I'll give you a moment to think about that. Feel free to pause and actually ponder this for a moment. Now, there are likely two big reasons that you came up with, possibly more, but there's generally speaking two that really jump out to me that are at least seemingly still kicking around to some degree. The first one is price, and the price argument may actually be somewhat fair, and that is for the exact same mouse, if one of the two is wireless with all other features being identical, the wireless mouse is almost certainly going to be more expensive. Now, I don't have like a magical spreadsheet that has every single mouse out on the market right now with all the features that I can sort of just line up and figure out what the average price for different mice are. But by and large, I would say it's likely to be true that the price is slightly more for a wireless mouse that's on feature parity with a wired version. So price is a given. I'll give that away. But the big one that serious gamers have seemingly avoided wireless mice for in the past was always latency. That is response time when you make a movement or you click a button, the delay that it takes for your computer to actually register that action. That argument, well, that one doesn't really make sense anymore. And to be fair, that argument actually hasn't made sense for a while now. Like Logitech, which is my preferred vendor, like I've had Logitech Peripherals for a while now, they've had excellent wireless solutions for some time at this point, to the point where wired versions of these peripherals, they just don't make sense for me because I am more than willing to pay a little bit more for a wireless untethered version of a peripheral. Now, this video actually started out as a long-term review of the Logitech Pro X Superlight. This is the original, not the Superlight 2, which has some quality of life improvements, but it was originally going to be just a long-term review of this mouse, and the takeaway was going to be really simple, by the way. This mouse still performs very well for me anecdotally, and also from a testing perspective. I wanted to test to see if there was any sort of wireless degradation going on, because I saw a video, and for the life of me, I can't remember what YouTuber it was that posted this, but they were having some issues with their wireless tech from some of their Logitech peripherals. That is to say, they've had issues with connectivity, with sort of lagging out, dropping sort of clicks, not registering, whatever. So I wanted to test if there was any degradation long-term on this mouse. Again, the quick takeaway is there wasn't. But getting into some of the numbers was actually kind of interesting. So as we look at this chart, I ran some testing with the wireless being in orange and the wired mode of this mouse being in blue. And basically, the average, which is on the far right, 3.297 versus 2.814 milliseconds of response time, they're almost identical. Like, yes, it looks like there may be just a tiny bit of gain by running this mouse through a cable into your PC, but we're talking barely. And also keep in mind, the testing methodology here does have some human error present. So even though I ran 13 tests, if I ran 100 for each, then I might be able to really hone in on what the average is. But realistically, you might be giving up a half a millisecond by moving to the wireless version from the wired mode of this mouse. That is to say, you are never going to notice the difference running this mouse in a wired mode versus a wireless mode. As a casual gamer, as a really good gamer, probably even as an actual professional gamer, you're just not gonna notice that small of a difference in the gameplay. And realistically, there are other things happening in the system that are adding much more latency to the gameplay experience. But I wanted to put this mouse up against a dedicated wired mouse, a gaming mouse that has no wireless option, that was built from the ground up to be wired, and I couldn't find one. Like, I don't own any wired peripherals anymore. And that's kind of the takeaway here. Like, I used to have a lot of wired mice, but over the course of time, I probably sold several of them with gaming PCs that I've sold through Facebook Marketplace. I may have given some of them away. But the big takeaway here is, without even really noticing it, I completely purged all of my wired mice from my life. All my mice left are wireless. And that brings me to the point of the whole video, and that is that we are living in a time where wireless peripherals are every bit as good as their wired counterparts, if not better, in the fact that they're just not tethered. Occasionally, you have to plug them in unless you have one of the mouse pads that also charges wirelessly. But occasionally, I do have to plug both my keyboard and my mouse in. But otherwise, I live a completely untethered life, and I would absolutely never go back at this point to a wired mouse unless for some reason my setup absolutely necessitated having a wired peripheral. But I don't miss wired mice whatsoever. I don't notice any performance difference whatsoever. I quite enjoy not being tethered at all by a cable. There's no cable drag whatsoever, so there is a real benefit there. And this thing, for its part, the Superlight, it served me well for well over a year now. And it's going to continue to be my main mouse because it's given me no reason to give up on it. But of course, I do want to kick it back to all of you. Do you use wireless peripherals, especially mice, because you really do want a little bit more free movement with a mouse? A keyboard, it's less of a big deal. Do you use wireless peripherals? What peripherals are those? And do you notice any difference at all from going from a wired gaming mouse to a wireless one? Let me know all your thoughts in those comments down below. Otherwise, like, share, subscribe, and I will see all of you in the next one.